Good evening and welcome to eNews at 8. I'm Shahan Ramkisoon. It's great to have you with us. Our top stories tonight.
If we're not being heard, which means we must be under the state of emergency, army must be all over us.
The fight for better living conditions in Alexandra is far from over. That's as the ANC and DA blame each other for failing to deliver. The PIC's investment of 9.3 billion rand into Steinhoff is now only worth 200 million. And you've seen them on the road, sometimes causing traffic delays, but waste pickers play an important role in keeping South Africa environmentally friendly, and they'll finally be integrated in the waste management sector. This leads, the Alexandra shutdown is showing no sign of slowing down. In fact, community leaders say they'll extend their protest to other areas if their demands for better services are not met. Gauteng Premier David Makhura met with residents today to accept a memorandum, but it did little to appease angry residents who've been protesting since last week. Slindelo Masikane reports.
Alexandra residents aren't backing down. But the protest action is dividing the community.
I'm not supporting this because, firstly, school kids are no longer going to school. If there's a shutdown, they're not going to school, and that holds them back into their education. And us, as well as parents, we need to go to work to provide for our families.
Why do you support the shutdown?
Because the Alexandra, the delivery was not right.
One of the demands is an end to the erection of informal structures. But amid a housing crisis, that's going to be a tall order. People here are crying out for the same services they say their Sandton neighbours receive. So where does the buck stop?
Are you going to take any blame at all?
Well, you listened to Ms. Lindelo very well. I said that the two spheres of government, there are issues that they must deal with. And I don't want any excuses. We need the mayor of Johannesburg to just not take the people of Alexandra for granted.
Meanwhile, at a press briefing, Mayor Herman Mashaba has laid the blame squarely at the ANC's door.
Yesterday, I wrote to President Ramaphosa and requested confirmation by end of today that his visit to tomorrow should be an intergovernmental engagement with the community, not the planned political rally it is.
For now, though, it seems the shutdown will continue and could even spread.
If we're not being heard, which means we must be under the state of emergency, army must be all over us. That's it. If we are not heard, police will never deal with this capacity of all Alexandrians.
Calls are also being made for other townships to join in the mass action. Slindelo Masikane, Alexandra in Johannesburg.
Police are investigating a deadly attack in Johannesburg's northern suburbs. 2 armed suspects shot a man as he entered his home at a residential complex. The suspects allegedly followed him into the property. There have been suggestions the incident was a hit. Linda Kuhle-Kulu has the details.
We understand from the police that this was indeed, a hit as far as they are concerned, and that this particular person was targeted. And they're saying that they're investigating a case of 2 suspects that are at large at this stage. And just behind me, the police are removing they're removing the barricade here because they are done with their investigations, we understand. But the car remains just behind me. Captain Mavela Masondo earlier on telling me that they have launched a manhunt and they're looking for 2 suspects that they believe were involved in this particular crime.
The exorbitant transaction fees paid during the PIC's investment into disgraced retailer Steinhoff have raised eyebrows. The PIC inquiries heard from 2 officials who explained the origin of that deal. They testified that when the asset manager pumped over 9 billion rand into Steinhoff, it believed the investment would grow, but that stake is now only worth 200 million rand. Heidi Jacos reports.
The government's employees' pension fund lost over 4 billion rand because of the investment the PIC made in Steinhoff International. Evidence has been presented about how Lancaster Group, owned by ex-unionist Jahindra Naidu, approached the asset fund manager for money to buy BE shares in Steinhoff. All was well when these stood at 98 Rand a share. But after the accounting irregularities at Steinhoff emerged, this crashed to just 2 Rand a share. The inquiry questioned the PIC about the more than 70 million Rand in transaction fees paid to advisors during the investment.
It's a question for me, because this is 100 million Rand of the deal that has gone clearly to pay from the PIC to Symphony, and just under 23 million to Lancaster. And I think that I'm not asking it for the Commission's point of view, I'm asking from the PIC's point of view. Would you not have wanted a breakdown of exactly who was getting what money within that total?
But as the witness admitted, it appears there was no such breakdown.
Commissioner, through you, there are some transactions where you would have access to the mandate agreement between the sponsor and the advisor, which would obviously outline the scope of work and the remuneration thereof. For this particular transaction, I don't recall seeing such a breakdown.
On Wednesday, explosive cross-examination of a high-profile witness who cannot be named is expected to happen. Heidi Jakos in Pretoria.
President Cyril Ramaphosa had better luck on a train in Cape Town today. Perhaps that's because it's part of a brand new locally produced fleet. Ramaphosa was stuck on a train for 3 hours last month. He's now again promising a better ride for commuters. The new trains are part of PRASA's modernization program. It's set to introduce 7,000 new trains at a cost of 170 billion rand.
I just happened to have traveled in a train, yes, campaigning for the elections, but clearly as the real horror of the way in which our people travel in really hit me, I realized that this is much broader than just an election issue. It's an issue and a problem that has to be resolved, and resolved rather urgently. And I'm particularly pleased that we are launching this new train here in the Western Cape, where we have already, on a cooperative basis, as national government, provincial government, city government, and the state institution, PRASA, have combined our efforts to make our trains safe here in the Western Cape to solve a particular problem.
In other news, almost all candidates contesting the upcoming election received the thumbs up from the IEC. The electoral body briefed the media today. All but one of the 52 objections were dismissed. The PAC's application against its own member for a recent prison sentence was upheld. It now comes down to those judged to be eligible in spite of the allegations against them and how they resonate with the voters. The Msunduzi municipality has collapsed. It's the latest to be placed under administration. It's owed over 3 billion rand in revenue. Now residents are being double billed to bail out the troubled municipality. At the core of the problem is political instability, failure to provide services, and the inability to collect revenue. Now, you might find them irritating, but they do serve a greater purpose. Waste pickers save municipalities in South Africa up to 750 million rand in landfill airspace each year. That's according to the Environmental Affairs Department, which is working on guidelines to integrate them into the formal waste management sector. Yanka Tolme has the story.
You see them almost every day pulling their trolleys. You may have hooted when they were blocking traffic, or wondered why they are going through your garbage. But waste pickers have been described as the backbone of the recycling industry in South Africa, collecting up to 90% of the post-consumer packaging and paper that get recycled. They're also playing a crucial role in slowing down the ever-shrinking landfill space.
Waste picking is a profession. That's why we are involved and engaged in the integration to make it recognized as a profession, because in the past, the waste management system didn't focus on material recovery.
By giving them official status, waste pickers could get more access to opportunities and increased resources. And government is also hoping to address health and safety issues faced by these workers every day.
The big picture is that where we're going as a country is that integrating reclaimers or waste pickers or micro collectors more into a more formalized way of working, but on their terms, maintaining their independency, their dignity, their requirements as a bottom-up approach.
The Environmental Affairs Department will soon release these guidelines, but it will be up to the municipalities to implement them based on their own models. Janke Tolme, Pretoria.
Coming up on eNews, the SANDF delivers aid to the cyclone-hit city of Beira in Mozambique. And Rupiwa will tell us what to expect in the markets today.
Well, Shahan, the rand was on the front foot in early trade today, and that's all thanks to a weaker dollars. Investors are gunning for those riskier assets.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. Rupiwa is here with your business update, and the IMF has cut our growth forecast. Why? I'm not happy about that.
We shouldn't be happy about that at all. I mean, in October, they had indicated that our growth for 2019 would be 1.4%. They've since revised that down to about 1.2% for 2019. And the biggest reason that they cite in this particular review is the policy uncertainty. A big part of that is Eskom. Our finance minister did indicate in February that a proper plan would be put in place in terms of how the country plans to deal with Eskom, and this hasn't happened. There have been a lot of short-term measures, but nothing long-term to just assure investors, particularly in the mining sector, in terms of what's going to happen. So the World Bank has said that it's going to be about 3% this year, and then National Treasury a little bit more optimistic about South Africa's prospects, saying we are going to be growing at about 1.5%, and all this comes from the back of our 0.8% growth in 2018, Shahan. So what the IMF is indicating here is that there has to be policy certainty as well as a bridge between the political and the social divide that exists within the country. We're seeing those protests, for example, in Alexandra being a big deterrent for people that are watching, namely your investors.
Yeah, and you mentioned Eskom, and then I had a light bulb moment and I realized why I shouldn't be upset, because it's a reality. You mentioned mining as well. Some good news in the mining sector in KwaZulu-Natal, billions being pumped in there.
Yeah, so global mining firm Rio Tinto doesn't seem to be too deterred about what's been happening in the country so far. 6.5 billion that they've invested into the development of a new mine in KZN. This builds on from a current mine, Richards Bay Minerals. So what's going to happen here is it's going to increase the life of mine in that particular area, as well as allow for further exports in terms of minerals. And this is really just going to boost our GDP, given that the mining sector has dropped well below 10% in terms of its contribution to GDP. So they are expecting production of this new mine to start mid this year, so in the next couple of months, and then in 2021 we're going to start seeing those exports coming along nicely. What's going to happen in the short term, though, which is really good news, is that we're going to be seeing a lot of job creation as we build to the commercial operation of this new mine.
All right, and with that, tell us how the markets performed.
Well, Shahan, not a great day for the markets today. So the JSE edged lower today, closing 0.25% in the red. So investors are somewhat cautious today, and this gave little directions for the market. But general retailers had a better day, adding about 1.6% to the bourse. If we take a look at your commodities now, gold 0.5% higher, moving to the $1,300 mark again. Platinum losing some of that shine we've been seeing on the day, and Brent crude also down, but still above that $70 a barrel mark. If we take a look at the local unit now, despite remarkable stability, the rand in the rand, analysts warn that this could evaporate should new global catalysts emerge. In the meantime, though, traders have reduced their expectations of the weakness in the currency, Shahan.
All right, thanks so much for that. Appreciate it. To this story now, the South African National Defence Force is in Mozambique delivering aid donated by South African citizens. Last month, the country was rocked by Cyclone Idai. Desintathia is with the SANDF in Mozambique.
It's been almost a month since Cyclone Idai battered the city of Beira. Now, activity at the Beira International Airport has started to slow down somewhat. Over the past few weeks, rescue workers and relief teams have been here trying to save those that have been trapped in flood waters. The SANDF is still working on the ground at the moment, and a new batch of aid has just been delivered to the people of Beira. Now, these donations come from the citizens of South Africa, and the process has been facilitated by the Department of International Relations and Cooperation. The delivery has been made by the South African National Defence Force.
After the break, we go to Louis Fernandez at our weather centre for your live weather report in Cape Town. And then it's a turtle-stranded season along the coast, and the Two Oceans Aquarium wants your help to save these little sea creatures. Stay with us. Welcome back. Louis is standing by with your weather forecast. Louis, it's still cold in Johannesburg. How's it looking in the rest of the country?
Well, Shahan, we're looking at mixed weather over the next couple of days. And today we also saw quite dramatic weather conditions along the east coast of South Africa. There were a few thundershowers just off the coastline of Kwazulu-Natal. And one of these storms produced a water spout that was visible from Umhlanga. Water spouts are fairly common over many parts of the world, far more common than their land-based counterparts, being tornadoes. But fortunately, these are fairly weak phenomena and also very seldomly cause damage because they are off the coastline. Let's take a look at what your Wednesday brings to your parts of South Africa. And we're going to see an influx of moisture over the eastern parts, allowing for a cloudy start to the day with drizzle and fog for some areas, especially along the escarpment. And that moisture that pushes onto the high veld will also bring with it a few thunderstorms into the afternoon, extending across the central interior as well as towards the eastern high ground. Foggy weather also likely along the west coast, especially in the morning and evening hours. And we can see that that fog will be keeping things cooler for Alexander Bay with a high of only 20, and thunder showers likely as you head further eastwards in the Northern Cape. It's going to be a mild day along the Western Cape coastline, quite a bit warmer along the south coast than it has been, 26 for Mossel Bay, but for the interior of the province, it's going to become hot with temperatures in the 30s. A few thunderstorms possible for some areas in the Eastern Cape. And as we head into KwaZulu-Natal, this is where we see a fair chance of precipitation, thunderstorms for the interior, as well as showers towards the coastline, especially in the morning. In Mpumalanga, we'll also see a few thunderstorms, mainly in the afternoon, but the morning will start off cloudy with drizzle and fog in places. And then for Limpopo, a few drops of rain over this province and a few thunder showers later on as well. In the northwest, there's a 60% chance of thunderstorms. Some of those thunder showers could potentially become severe, and we'll see similar conditions into the Free State, where it stays cool for Bethlehem at 21 degrees. And finally, for Gauteng, there's also a 60% chance of thunder showers in the area, keeping things cooler, and there could even be some rain around in the morning. Let's take a quick look ahead to what you can expect for Thursday. Thunder showers in the northern parts of the country, but warm and dry in the south. And then drier air reaches all of the Northern Cape on Friday, and it's going to be a lovely afternoon across the country's coastline. That's all from the Weather Centre. Shahan, it's back to you.
All right, thanks for that, Louis. Appreciate it. Now, there's been an influx of stranded turtle hatchlings on beaches around the Western Cape. Authorities are warning against putting them back into the sea. Instead, the public is being urged to take them to the Two Oceans Aquarium. Tanya Neft reports.
This little loggerhead turtle is one of many washed-up hatchlings that faced a daunting future. That is until concerned beachgoers heeded the Two Oceans Aquarium's call for them to be brought to the facility for rehabilitation. The appeal comes amid the so-called turtle stranded season and forms part of the aquarium's rescue, rehab and release program.
Every year we have large loggerhead and leatherback turtles that lay their eggs on our coastline, and at the beginning of the year those turtles hatch and they make their way to the sea. They get caught in our warm Agulhas current down the coastline, and then they find themselves in our coastal waters, which are much too cold for them. And so due to injury and cold shock and dehydration, they wash up on the beaches. And if these little turtles aren't rescued at this point, then they'll unfortunately die.
A bale of just over 30 hatchlings collected along the coastline have so far been handed in. Most of them are unfortunately under strict quarantine with no public access allowed. And if all goes according to plan, they too can live up to the expected age of 80 years and older.
The little ones in quarantine should grow into healthy turtles, just like this little one who seems to be recovering well. But that can only happen if you bring them to the aquarium to be cared for. Tanya Neft, Cape Town.
From me, Shahan Ramkisoon and the rest of the team, good night.